Alright, time for another draftphysics.com, debatephysics.com also, but as stated before, the debate is just crap. Okay, yes, nobody will just reasonably argue physics. And so there's just little to argue with or little interaction possible at this stage because we can't get a real physicist to take any interest in validating their physics with like real evidence instead of canardy little gimmick experiments. So the Dispar guy just keeps doing his own version of crap experiments. You know, he crashes Matchbox cars into crackers and all kinds of silly shit. Okay, knocks over milk cartons and doesn't account for the fact that the two objects are swinging very different amounts. Big, easy to see mistakes. And so, in his most recent regurgitation of defense of this garbage experiment he's been doing from these terrible camera angles, and he's pretending that somehow this is a fair cop. So, as this image illustrates, so this is a 1 mass from 4 height, and this is a 2 mass from 1 height. Okay, so we're talking about a 2 velocity, a 1 mass going 2 velocity, a 2 mass going 1 velocity. Now my claim is it's exactly the same energy, same capacity to do work. Kinetic energy says this has twice as much energy, the lighter object. All right, now he's debunking my claim, and yet he didn't put the camera in the same place. So I'm claiming it's the same energy, so the camera should be in exactly the same place because it's supposed to be the same exact stretch of the rubber band. But obviously, if you look how much dark space is up here versus here. I mean, it's a huge parallax problem. I mean, the camera is not only out at a certain amount, it's tilted this way or that way. It's clearly a huge distortion. Okay, so he's claiming this is 8 centimeters and this is 6. Let's just round the numbers off, something like that. And therefore this has more energy. It's not twice as much energy, obviously, but yes, it's more energy somehow. But anyway, it's just so bad. All right, so I mean, there's just nothing fair about it, right? I mean, if you're going to move the camera for, to get a straight view at the ruler for a different expansion, well, then you should assume my theory because it's claiming that it's the same. So if the camera's in the same place, then you could get a clear image of it being in the same place. Now, the interesting thing is if you look at other features, there's a little can here with a blue lid. Well, there's one down here also. You can't see it, though. Exactly in the same place. So if you look at this picture frame, almost exactly in the same place. So those are 2 indications. Now, an even stronger one is in the fact, that if you superimpose the images, okay, what you'll notice is, see, there's an angle that the rod goes through them. And if I match the top of the rod perfectly, the bottoms also match. Well, that's a little dicey. Okay, it's pretty there. They match. So, right on top of each other, and the angle is the same. So that's a real indicator because I don't know if you could change the angle much by changing the angle of the photo. But you can see again, if you're at all fair. Come on, arrow. There we go. Look at the difference in where everything is so misaligned and out of alignment that how could this be a fair measurement? I mean, it's just sort of ridiculous to sell this as a useful experiment when it's so ridiculously poorly framed, distorted. I mean, the distortion in the measurement is grotesque. So there's ways of getting around that. I mean, you could drag something on a little piece of fishing line behind it and then drag it through flour or something, and then the little thing would tell you how far the rubber band expanded. some sort of Brozosian, it pushes a little blob of clay or something, some way to get a more perfect, a better measurement than this visual one. You can distort by just changing the angle of the camera. You can get a completely different number. The same thing will look completely different depending on the angle. So he could just show us that. He could just show us it in one spot, and then he could show us, well, look, if I look at it this way, it looks like 41 centimeters. If I look at it this way, it's 43 centimeters. So, I mean, it's just such bullshit. I mean, to redefend this and to restate, his video again is titled Absolute Proof. This isn't absolute proof. It's garbage. It's just absolute garbage is what it is. So anything else that needs to be said on that subject? I don't think so. Just terrible. Garbage. So we'll see what else I'll decide to do with this video. Just thinking of the different, like I say, if you could put a protractor at the top, then you could just measure angles. So you get your top angle, for your height right, and you can get your angle where it pushes, and the angles will kind of tell the tale. Because it is traveling on an arc, and you have to do a little more math that way, but it might be more accurate, okay, in terms of getting the right answer versus the wrong answer. So I'll see if I can think of some other little solutions, but garbage. It's just garbage. I mean, this whole premise, I guess I could draw it. I mean, what he's arguing is stupid, silly. It's just so stupid. All right, so what he's saying is that if you took, we know that twice the weight, so if these were both the same weight, a 1, that twice the weight compresses a spring twice as much. He's claiming when a spring is 2x compressed, okay, it's got 4x the energy. So that's his claim. So this is 1 unit of energy, and this, the same compression, is 4 units. So somehow, I can put one mass on a scale, or do the work on the scale with one mass, and then if I put do exactly the same action, I can make 3 times the energy. I can add 3 times the energy to the spring's compression. And you got to know that's crazy stupid. Can't happen that way. It doesn't work that way. Twice the weight is not 4 times the energy. It's just stupid. Yeah, that's what it is. Stupid. All right. Insipidly stupid. Okay. It's really any point. There's so many of these arguments. Like I said, they haven't. In the last video, I went through all these arguments. They ignore all of those arguments. They don't counter them with anything reasonable. Again, are they really going to assert that if I did roll a ball, okay, same thing, right, and I roll it at twice the velocity, they're really going to argue that 4 times the energy went into the ground? 4x the energy. It absorbed all the energy. The ground absorbs the energy. Now, that Richard Feynman says that. So are they saying Feynman was confused and an idiot? I mean, I don't think there's any physicist realistically who doesn't understand that whatever this has that's called energy because of its motion, the motion is consumed by the friction. Okay, and that the friction is actually motion. Okay, it really is momentum. So you really start with momentum here, and that mass and a velocity, and you end up with little masses, okay, and big velocity, so to speak. I mean, a lot of little masses moving a velocity, let's just put it that way. And that's all that happens. You conserve the energy, you've turned it into heat, and there's only 2x the heat. Okay, no doubt about it. I mean, it's the way it really works. I mean, you can prove that friction is reduced by velocity. So, I mean, is there really a point in arguing with people who deny the thin ice argument? That you can slide across thin ice and not fall in because you've defeated your gravitational weight. You're moving faster than gravity can make you heavy, and so therefore you get away with it. And if you move anything slower than the speed of gravity, that is the speed at which gravity gives you weight, well, then you're always going to fall through. You won't weigh more, you'll just weigh your weight, and it's too much. But go fast, you don't weigh your weight. You don't weigh your mass. I mean, is that a defeatable argument? Can somebody present me some sort of logic that says you're damn sure there's 4 times the energy in the ground? That friction doesn't change no matter what the velocity is? The same exact amount of energy goes into the ground? Because that's the only way they can make sense out of this, right? It's 2 units of time, right? That's all it is, 2 units of time, 2 units of velocity, and yet they're claiming there's 4 units of energy because, well, look, it's 4 units of distance. So what? It's 4 units of distance because it's traveling fast across the surface and defeating the only 2 units of time to do that 4 units of distance. 9.8 per 1 second. It only got 2 units of it. Come on. So it's just, like I said, this isn't an argument about being reasonable and having a nice debate. It's just about you people being belligerently dishonest jackasses. And that's all there is. That's all I'm proving, is that you can't counter these arguments. You can't make sense out of this nonsense that somehow when I put this one mass on the scale, I've made 3 extra units of energy. It's idiotic. Indefensible rubbish. So again, you're belligerently ignorant. Well, that's the wrong word to use. You're belligerently dishonest because you know it's a valid argument. You know it should be addressed somehow. Somebody should address the argument. Someone should prove there's 4 times the heat in that ground. You shouldn't just claim it. You should be able to say, well, yeah, in 350 years of claiming this nonsense, they ought to have a real experiment proving it. But every ballistic pendulum proves otherwise. Every rocket ship proves otherwise. Every lever proves otherwise. And they just keep asserting it. With confidence, with mocking ridicule is all they can come up with. They can't come up with a valid, reasoned argument. It's pathetic. So I won't make all these arguments again, because I did make them in the Steve Mould lever paradox, the silly defenders of kinetic energy. So if you type in the silly defenders of kinetic energy, it should come up with that video. And if you watch the you could ignore the first 5 minutes, and the rest of it is just showing all the examples where kinetic energy dismally fails, and just provide some counter argument, provide some evidence that some other truth is true, that pulleys really do fail to conserve momentum, that levers really do fail to conserve momentum. Explain how my arguments about how springs work are wrong. I do something. But this obnoxious ridicule is ineffective. It doesn't affect me. And I think if there's an honest person listening to the video, it won't affect them, because honest people aren't going to be fooled by pointless, idiotic mockery and ridicule. But whatever. Whatever. I mean, it's just, like I said, it's all on the record. There's a clear record that I sat here for more than 10 years making very lucid, sensible arguments, and I didn't get any rational response. It's just obvious. So in hindsight, the conclusion can only be one conclusion, that, wow, human beings are scummy liars. I mean, they won't even concede that, yes, these are experiments that should have been done by physics. That they should prove this stuff. Again, if you say there's 4 times the energy in this ground, that friction absorbed 4 times the energy, you should show it. You should have some fucking physical evidence. If you're going to say there's 1998 joules inside of a ballistic pendulum, well, you should stick a thermometer in there and give us some indication that that's a truth. I mean, just so bad. Really, just so bad. Alright, so I think I just talk about what I've been thinking about. I've been watching the Feynman lectures again, just by accident. Okay, it was like a related link, and I hit it by accident. I said, oh, okay, I'll listen to it again. So it's the 6 hours of the first version where he's talking about two subjects, essentially gravity. Oh, yeah, gravity. And then he talks about... the double slits in there. So it's gravity and photons, and then he just gets into all the woo particles. All right. The second two, the last couple of lectures are just a waste of time. But anyway, but this whole format of talking about physics and discovery. So, if I was to do the draft science lectures, I'd start with some kind of crap about what the project is here. And so I would argue that science is about, you see an effect and you say what caused it. And the trick is that the effect can happen in this big universe we live in, but the causes are always pretty much orchestrated by the micro universe. The little universe makes everything that happens in the big universe. So if you're going to talk about what caused it, you're going to have to necessarily explore the tiny universe, the universe of tiny things. And as I have pointed out, and as I will point out to you again, as I have asserted quite aggressively, there's only one reality. There's only one place that things really happen, and that's where electrons and protons live. They're the things being affected by empty space and force. They're the things that are the most elemental things functioning. And everything else is caused by the rules that govern those things. There's no other rules but the rules that are affecting electrons and protons. Anyway, so the truth is we see effects, we want to see the causes, but we have to discover them. We have to uncover, and reveal those causes, and you do that through experiments. They're very helpful, okay, because you can test things under different circumstances. You can change little tiny things, try to manipulate it, see if you can find that truth. Now, just like the rolling example, see if you can find the truth. Okay, can you find the truth? Is this 4 times the energy in the ground? If it's not 4 times the energy in the ground, then you have to draw the rational conclusion and say there can't be 4 times the energy in the object. Not possible. Well, twice the energy in this case. No, 4 times, because it's twice the energy, because it's twice the velocity, of course. So, test it. Do this. And then tell me there's 4 times the energy and twice the spring compression. Because it doesn't make any sense. Okay, I don't think it's going to be true. Now, launching things, again, that's where the trick is, right? Because the lighter the thing you launch, the less energy is going to get into it. But that's part of this discovery. So you're uncovering the truth through experiments. That's how you reveal the truth. And the thing you have to be careful of is all the variables that are involved. Okay, there's always little subtle things that can be affecting something, and you have to be aware of those little subtle things, like rotation of wheels on a cart. Its linear momentum is one number, but if you have to recognize that when it hits something and the wheels are on axles, that extra energy that was in the rotation is now going to hit the wall also. So even though its linear momentum said it had this much energy, you have to add that angular momentum. All right, but if you have a regular rolling thing and it just hits a surface, well, it won't add extra energy in that direction. It'll add energy in that direction. So it's a trick. Those are variables. You have to be aware. You have to be smart enough to know, oh, Springs don't give back all their energy. Why? Oh, that's because they're moving too. And if they're still moving after the thing has left, well, then that energy can't possibly push something. And it's going to be wasted oscillating the spring. That's a fact. It's a, it's a real variable in a spring experiment. I'm not lying. I'm not deceiving anybody by explaining that. That's revealing a truth. All right. So the point is draw conclusions carefully. I mean, that would be a scientific principle. Repeat experiments, do certain things, but definitely draw conclusions carefully, because you're going to have to live with the consequence of making a mistake, because everything's going to be built on those mistakes. And so you don't want to do that. Yeah, no, that's a bad idea. Building on quicksand, stupid. Don't do it. All right. So the simple phrase I came up with, the conclusion cart should be well behind the evidence horses. So the evidence should come first, then the conclusion. Okay, the conclusion shouldn't be way ahead of the evidence, and you certainly shouldn't be pointing the horses towards the cart. You shouldn't be forcing. And that's all my critics are doing, is trying to force the results. All right, and so the last thing I wrote is be a Columbo, not a Clouseau. As a detective, you're out here trying to detect the truth, trying to find out what really happened, what was the cause of the dead guy over there, or whatever the circumstances is. And so for all these circumstances, that's what you're trying to do. Now, I spent years drawing little things moving around, getting pushed by arrows and all this kind of crap to figure out how charge worked. It's right in your face. I mean, it's just saying, why are electrons attracted to protons, and then electrons are repelled by electrons? Why? Okay. And the simple mechanism that solves the problem is just to recognize that there's no law against there being two kinds of force, just like there's two kinds of matter, plus and minus. There's two kinds of force, plus and minus. And if they inversely affect each other, then you have a perfect system for creating attraction between the opposites and repulsion between the likes, merely by having the force actually stick to the matter. So every description that they ever did in physics, they always think it's Newton's cradle, balls bouncing off of each other, and they don't recognize that, but the force is enduring. The force is always conserved, the amount of it. So you can't exchange it. The force can't give its energy to the matter by banging into it and then stopping, and now it's dead force. That can't happen. And then this just magically goes without any force in it. Obviously, the force has to stick to the matter to push the matter. The matter can't move unless it's absorbed a force. So a piece of matter moving has absorbed force. It's absorbed a bias in a direction, in the sense that it has more stuff in it going this way, more force, than it has stuff going that way, then it goes this way, and vice versa. All right, so anyway, so that's how it would start. It's just that, I would just give the explanation of physics as if none of their silly physics was ever done, and I was just going to defend the rational physics and say, this is why we believe, okay? Even though the we is just me. Just makes the lecture better if you're not doing this hostile. I mean, Feynman doesn't waste his time explaining why flat earthers are idiots. He just defends a theory, an argument. And the point is that if you analyze his defense, it's silly. So he talks about, he actually does this thing, I played the clip, but, where he says kinetic energy and he says conserved. And then he says momentum and he says conserved. And again, both of them can't be conserved. It's impossible to conserve both. As soon as you bang heavy things into light things, you're going to lose kinetic energy. And anytime you bang the light things into the the heavy things into light things, whenever you're converting the energy from heavy things to light things, you're going to get free kinetic energy. Okay, and vice versa. So whenever you change the mass, you can't conserve both. It's just an absolute fact. So, I mean, this is a simple argument too, right? So I have to make this argument over and over to all these people. I mean, they can't concede the simple truth that there's no possible way both of them can be conserved if I change the universe from having energy in the form of big things to having energy in the form of little things, going, where the MV has been conserved. Okay, where the mass and velocity, okay, has been conserved. That is, I went from a big mass with a small velocity to a small mass with a big velocity, and I conserve the momentum. There's no way I can conserve the kinetic energy also. They both can't be conserved whenever I go from energy in the form of big masses to energy in the form of small masses. They can't both be conserved. So again, why should I shouldn't have to keep arguing that. You should accept the premise that yes, it's just wrong to say both are conserved in this universe, because they both can't be conserved in this universe. Every single time. Just saying, you can't change those facts. Okay, that a bowling ball, an 8-pound ball going 16, has exactly the same momentum as a 16-pound ball going 8, but they don't have the same kinetic energy. Come on, too obvious. Again, we're back to the lever. So if they're going to say the law of the lever doesn't hold, and that the one mass, two distances, will only go 1.4 the velocity, they can't conserve the momentum then. So if they conserve the kinetic energy on the lever, they can't conserve the momentum. And if you conserve the momentum, obviously you can't conserve the kinetic energy. Come on, too obvious. I am amazed, frankly. I'm very surprised. Like I said, there was a lot of things that, it just surprised me. As I kind of had this notion till I was about 40 or 45 or something, that anything could be fixed because you could just go to a higher court and, they could fix it. And I had read a bunch of Supreme Court decisions, and they were really quite brilliant people, before the 70s or 80s or so. Really smart. Really well written, really well argued. So you said, yeah, these guys they'll fix it. And I was just wrong, completely wrong. Because, they'll, when it comes to something like religion or some other thing, they'll find a loophole, they'll find some way to engineer an excuse, and justice will change entirely. And now it's complete bullshit. Now they're just political hacks. No integrity whatsoever. They'll lie right through their teeth. It's just not a problem. Lying, deception, just all bullshit. And I said, so that was my mistake, thinking that, the Constitution means something. Being president means something. That you just can't be a fuck up. You just can't be an asshole. And well, sure you can. It just gets worse and worse and worse. I mean, it's funny that, that one candidate, whatever his name was, funny name he had. Anyway, and he had the hanky-panky vote, and that disqualified him from being president. Something that trivial. In hindsight, it's laughable. Nixon's crimes were laughable compared to what's routine now. So anyway, that was a big disappointment. And again, I thought science had some integrity, especially physics. That it was this, it was argued, it was careful, it was precise, and that was all a lie. It's only precise in their rhetoric. They pretend, oh, look, we've got 45 decimal places we've measured it to. Yeah, because you made a machine that produces that exact outcome. It's all circular. They haven't really tested any of this crap. It's terrible. It's just a religion. And that's all it is. I mean, all this entanglement crap, I mean, right on its face, everybody should say, oh, come on, you got to prove that. I mean, I'm not asking for extraordinary evidence, but you got to give me some pretty good ordinary evidence. If you're going to make a claim like that, dark matter, antimatter, even positrons. We still don't have a picture of a positron. The claim is a real thing. The only picture you'll ever find is from 1962 or something. 1950 or 42. Because a proton went through a piece of lead and it came out going too fast, and so they called it a positron. That's all it really is, okay? There's nothing else. So they'll say they have a beam of positrons, and there's no beam of positrons. It doesn't happen. The positron is always in some interactive thing. Like you cause and effect, then you make up a story about how a positron flew over here and did this, and then that did that, and then this did that. But there's no actual evidence that there's any fucking such thing. They can't do an experiment with a positron. There's just none. Okay? Because it's not a thing. All right. It's just so bad. Antimatter. You shouldn't fall for this crap without damn good evidence. Even going all the way back to the stupid, light is twice as bent by gravity, let alone bent at all. You don't even have any good evidence it's bent at all. It's just so bad. Particles bend light. Collisions with matter bend light. That's what the double slit proves. You shoot some photons next to a surface, and the photons come out in the wrong direction. Yeah, basically. The pieces anyway. Duh. I mean, it's just so obvious. Yes, matter breaks photons, not gravity. Ridiculous. And yet you're believers. You're all believers. So again, if I'm proven right, what is humanity going to have to say? It's going to have to say, like, God, we are just such scum that not one of us had the integrity to say, good argument, I got to look into that. Not one of them. Amazing. Just fucking amazing. All right, anyway. Jesus. You can't even lead the dumbasses to the water, let alone have them drink anything. Fuck. Hate this planet. Really just hate it here. Thanks to you.